Jay Ma'at Hotep. This is The Truth May Hurt. Name is Raymond Witcher, and I will be your host. We're going to do part two of Waking Up is Not Good Enough. Getting Up is Required. This is going to be part two. I have some things that I need to add to this, so we're going to get right into it and finish it up. Excuse me. On the previous video, I mentioned how China is technology-wise more advanced than us. And when you really think about propaganda, they're a lot more advanced than we would ever think. Okay. So I had shown you pictures of the subway. I had shown you pictures of there's high speed train system, and I had mentioned how much more advanced their electric cars and electric trucks are. So I want to show you. They make us look bad. Okay, when it comes to technology and advancement, China is way ahead. Japan is way ahead. I worked with Japanese Space Exploration Agency. It's called, their acronym is JAXA, J-A-X-A, Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, on a program called MMS. You can look that up. NASA program, no, it was GPM, NASA GPM program. I worked on MMS too, but it is Global Precipitation and Measurements. If you look up that project, you'll see it's a joint project with Japan. So I had to interface and work with the Japanese engineers and quality assurance people, and I have never worked with a space agency or anything in the manufacturing and research and development that was more organized than the Japanese. I mean, they worked like a robot. Everything that they did was rehearsed. There was very little talking because they knew what the next move was. And the person beside you would be giving you the tool, and the person on this side would be taking the tool you just used. And it was just so organized. So knowing that, and have witnessed that myself, when you're seeing things like this when it comes to China, China may be, and probably is, more advanced than Japan, is my point. So when I say that the Chinese technology surpasses ours, look at some of their electric trucks and then compare them to what we see in some of the American electric vehicles. Okay? I mean, I mean, this is why they don't let Chinese vehicles into this country. This looks kind of like what Elon Musk wants. What is this, Cybertruck? Can't touch this. As far as technology, as far as durability, as far as performance. And let me move it here so you can see. These are the Chinese, if you look right here on the right, where I just moved the picture down from, Chinese electric pickup trucks. Okay? We can't come close to what we're putting out to the American consumers. They're cheaper. They're more reliable, and they beat American electric vehicles in all categories. Okay. So my point is, if they're this far advanced, this is an electric truck that's running on not the trolleys, the catapults. You see it raises up and it hits the electric wires. That's where it's powered. Okay. So when Donald Trump started his trade wars with the tariffs and everything, China said, well, listen, we're going to make it so that you can buy directly from us. Now, I don't think you can order a truck because there are no Chinese manufacturers in the United States, so getting it serviced would be a problem. Okay? But this is what they're hiding from us. Okay? The advancement in their technologies across the board. Okay? Let's see, that's the trucks. Where are the cars? This is the interior of their electric vehicle. This is the pictures of the car's interior. Okay? So I'm just showing you the difference in the advancements in technology. You don't see this in the electric cars in America. Okay? So if they are putting out this kind of technology in their commercial products, what kind of technology do you really think that they're putting in their military? Okay, what do you think? I think we have a problem when we're talking about the United States being in a conflict with China. And that's what it's boiling down to. And I'm going to show you why when we get on into this video. Okay. Okay, and these are the Chinese cars' exterior. And they're cheaper by what, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 in the American Teslas and the American manufacturers' electric cars. They went anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, maybe $60,000 cheaper. Okay, so when we see this, we get an idea of the technology that China has. I'm gonna try to get some prices for you before I close this out. I mean, these are beautiful, well put together cars. Okay, stylish, chic, slick. I should have been showing you this. Some of these cars have like 450 horsepower. Okay? Chinese $10,000 electric vehicle. Okay? That's $10,000. So they have a price on this one. Top 5 Chinese electric cars. Okay? So you look at these, and then we're going to look at some prices and compare them to Tesla and others. Okay? But now you keep in mind, this is a K55. This is the 430. When I looked at the tires on the back of this car, I was like, this might be the one that has all the power. You can look at that wheel in the back and tell that you need this kind of, the only reason to put this kind of tire on a car is because it has a lot of horsepower. This car is a 430 horsepower Chinese electric sports car. Okay? So they're putting it out. And every one of them looks very high quality. Unveiled world's fastest electric car. I'm gonna try to find more on this one, Chinese. Hold on one second. Okay, this Nio EP9 Chinese electric supercar from Next EV has a combined power output of 1,341 horsepower. This power is generated by 4 electric motors. The car also has a top speed of 194 miles an hour and can reach 124 miles per hour. Okay, so this is the car. All right. And when you compare it to what they're putting out here in America, I don't think can I pull this up? I can't open this. I wanted to see the full specs, the price and everything, but I can't pull it up. I just want you to see what the electric cars of China is putting out. Okay, so they're not behind us in technology. They are in front of us in technology. Okay, they had some pictures of the interior. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull that up so that you can get a look at that, and we're gonna move on. I mean, just look at this car. Okay, I'm trying to find the other one. Wait a minute. And this is the interior of that car. Okay, you're talking about luxury here. You're talking about things that we don't see in cars here. This is China. This is not America. This is the Chinese 1,340 horsepower car. Okay. And if they're putting this kind of technology in their commercial products, what kind of technology are they putting in their planes and their ships and their weapons? What are they what does that look like? Okay, it's something that we need to be aware of and we need to consider. Okay, top speed. It's not given that. Okay, but that's what we're looking at when we're talking about Chinese technology. Okay, so when we look at what areas of technology does China lead in? Drones, machine learning, electric batteries, nuclear energy. Okay, so all of these things have military applications. Okay, I would stretch. I don't think I would be stretching far to say that the Chinese batteries are more efficient and last longer before needing to be recharged than the American batteries. Okay, so they say China leads the U.S. in research of 37 out of 44 critical technologies, claims think tank. We're behind. We're not ahead. So you don't want to be involved in any kind of a military conflict with China. Okay, you just don't. It wouldn't be smart. Back in the 80s when I was going to school, I listened to a sermon from a minister, and everything that this man said in this sermon has come true except the war between the United States and China. It's inevitable. Okay, China leads in up to 98% of the technology research study shows. 89%. Okay, so China made a goal. They made their goal like 25 years ago. I'm not sure if it was 25 or 50, because they were poor. They were pretty much like Africa 25, 30 years ago. They made a commitment that they were going to grow in technology. They picked out like 7 or 10 areas that they wanted to dominate, and they've achieved that. Okay, they've achieved that. Okay, anyway, this minister he predicted that the end of the world, that as we know it, is going to be between the conflict between China and the United States. And I don't think we're far from that. Okay, so when we're looking at the stockpile of nuclear weapons, Russia has 5,580. The United States has 5,044. China has 500 nuclear warheads. France has 290. United Kingdom has 225. Now, here's what most people don't consider or think about. This is old technology. Okay? It doesn't take 5,000 nuclear weapons to destroy the world. Okay? That means that Russia has nuclear warheads pointed at every state in the United States. China has nuclear weapons pointed at all 50 of the United States. The United States has weapons pointed at all areas of Russia and all areas of China. So the destruction capability to destroy the world is right there. Okay? But my point is that these are no longer secret weapons. This is old technology. This technology is 50 and 60 years old. With the advancements that we have in research and development in technology, the question is, what kind of weapons do they have now that are secret weapons? Okay? I've worked on class 3 and class 4 lasers. My thoughts and my knowledge of research and development, I feel that they have a new type of laser weapon that they can just fire that laser. It's more precise. It's going to hit where you put it without doing all of this destruction right here. Okay? It would be foolish for me to believe that these are the most powerful weapons. These are probably the most destructive weapons that we have on Earth. But we have weapons today that have never been seen by the public. And I would assume that China has them, the United States has them, Russia has them, France, United Kingdom, they all have something that is more sophisticated than a nuclear weapon. Okay? So when we're evaluating China's technical advancements in technology, China has 8 smart cities that basically run either off of some kind of robotic system or some kind of smart system that is controlled by AI, artificial intelligence. Their artificial intelligence supersedes what we have. Okay, Beijing. As a capital city, Beijing is pushing the pace of construction of a smart city. The city's public services in Beijing for residents are becoming simpler and more convenient via the Beijing Citizen Social Service Card, a virtual card that integrates all kinds of information such as identity documents, social security, health conditions, and education information. So they have 8 cities that are smart. Shanghai. All of these cities are smart cities. And just look at the technology in the cities. Let's do that and we're going to get out of here. Look at their infrastructure. Okay. Look at their technology. Okay. They're not behind, is what I'm trying to show you. Okay. They're just not. Now, 50 years ago, China didn't look like this. 20, 30 years ago, China did not look like this. Okay, they were impoverished, most of China. And in case you don't know this, one of the big problems between the United States and China is either during or after World War II, the United States gave China huge shipments of opiates, morphine, and all of the addictive opiate drugs. And the majority of the population became hooked on these drugs. just so that you can see I don't make things up. If you do a search on after World War II, U.S. gave China opiates that they became hooked on, it'll come right up. After World War II, the U.S. provided China with opium, which led to a historical hatred of opium in China. The relationship between China and the West has changed significantly since the days of the Opium Wars. And in many ways, the roles are reversed in this current opiate crisis. The U.S.-China trade war has been impacted by the illegal import of the opiate fentanyl. You see, the U.S. got China, the majority of the population in China hooked on opiates when the United States knew that this is the most addictive drug on earth. They gave it to them by the shiploads, and the population became addicted. And here you see the opiate. Right here, I'll pull up a better one. Okay, we're looking at the opiate war in China. Okay, opiate war in China has deep historical roots, beginning with the Opium War in the 19th century, which were fought between the British Empire and the Zhang dynasty over the opium trade. Opium was introduced to China during the Tang dynasty and became a significant issue by the Song dynasty, leading to widespread addiction and social problems. The first Opium War was in 1839 to 1842, marked a pivotal moment as it forced China to open its markets to opium imports, exacerbating, making it worse, the crisis. In contemporary times, the opiate crisis has evolved, with fentanyl becoming a major concern. U.S. officials have accused China of being complicit in the opiate crisis, particularly regarding the production and export of fentanyl, which has contributed to the epidemic in the United States. The ongoing issue highlights the complex relationship between China and the opiate crisis, as both historical and modern factors continue to influence the situation. Now, I may have misstated a little bit, because the opium and the opium crisis was introduced to China from Great Britain. This was back in the from the 19th century to 1839 to 1842. And then after World War II, the United States also just dumped more opium on the Chinese people. And if you really do a little bit more research, and I'm gonna see if I can find it, this is when China was forced to come under British rule. Okay, I don't want to hold this thing up too more. You can do a little research on that, but that's how China fell into poverty. This is when China was a nation of addicted people. They lost all of their power. They couldn't build. They had to recover. So when I'm showing you these things, it leads up to why America today has the biggest addiction problem on earth. Because they've done it to everybody else. They did it to China. Mexico and China are just taking advantage of America, because America's in a drug war that they can't win. They weren't in it to win it when they started it. They were in it to dominate it. And the targets of their domination to use drugs on was black people. It's a simple fact. Okay, I'm just showing you enough information. War. All right? So you can read these things, but I'm just introducing them to you to show you, one, we're behind these opiate wars and after World War II, China was reduced to an addicted population of people that were living in poverty. And after the United States did this, they did nothing to help them. So it destroyed the bridge between the United States and China has never forgiven the United States for this. This is why China is importing not just fentanyl into the United States, but all of the precursors that they need to make crystal meth. They're shipping it to Mexico so that they can supply and flood the United States with crystal meth, what they call it, ice. Okay, so you got to understand the whole reason that we have a drug problem. We have a drug problem because of the drug problem that we gave China. We have a drug problem because of the way we've treated Mexico. Okay, now think about it. There has been, how many years has there been a war on drugs? Since the 60s? 70s when Ronald Reagan? 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 50, 60 years. There has been a war on drugs. Do you think we're winning? Do you think that there are less drugs now in America or more drugs? Now, there's never been a war on drugs, first of all. That is just a title that the government gave something to say we're trying to do something about this drug problem. But it is America that went down to South America with military planes and were bringing cocaine into this country on military planes full of cocaine. At that time, I forgot the general's name that was doing this, but Bill Clinton was a part of it, because the planes, when they first arrived in America, landed on bases in Arkansas that Bill Clinton was the governor, and he approved it. It was a big conspiracy. These drugs were to be distributed only in the black inner city neighborhoods. Not just the drugs, but the guns. There were, what do you call them? The cars, the train cars that were mysteriously left on the tracks in black communities full of guns. By the cases and crates, military weapons. You can look it up in LA, in Chicago. This is social engineering. You see, if you don't understand the root cause of the problem, you'll never solve the problem. The root cause of the problem is the government. They've been on a war against drugs that they haven't been able to win or make progress on. Come on. Who believes that? That's why I say you have to wake up, not just wake up, we have to get up and awaken from our slumber. Okay? Now, what has backfired on the United States is, as long as the United States could control the drugs, they could control, as long as the United States government could control the drugs, they could control the distribution. And the policy was, these are only to be distributed in the poor black neighborhoods. Well, China and the cartel said, well, wait a minute, it's more money in the rich people's neighborhoods and communities. Their children have more money to spend on these drugs. So instead of us doing business with the government where we give it to them and they ship it in and then they distribute it, we're going to distribute it. We're going to bring it right to your children's neighborhoods. We're going to bring it right into your homes. Okay? We're not going to just flood the black neighborhoods. We're going to flood yours. And what's been happening ever since then? The white kids been dying. The white kids no longer needed to go to the ghetto to buy their drugs. The cartel made a smart business move. Listen, we can make more money by selling it to the rich than we can selling it to the poor. China is like, screw the United States. We have not forgotten how you imported all of these narcotics right into our country. You didn't warn us, you didn't foretell us of any of these things. And then they had like one of the biggest addiction problems of any country in the world. So you have to understand, that is a big problem in between the United States and China. And China's like, no, we don't forgive and forget, okay? We're going to punish you. And that's what they've been doing. And it's getting ready to get worse because Donald Trump is in the office. He has a big ego. He's not smart. He's very retaliatory. And he wants to be the commander-in-chief of a war. Okay, when I mention about lasers as weapons, I know what I'm talking about. I built class 3 and class 4 lasers. And I think if you get up to, I think it's like 1,000,000 millijoules, or is it millijoules? There's a power structure of lasers, okay? For an example of lasers, class 1 lasers are the ones that you can go in the store and you open a card and it starts lighting up or blinking. Then the class 2 lasers are the ones that you see in the laser pencils, or you see that you can use the laser to point at something, laser pointers. You see them in Xerox copiers, class 2 lasers. Then you get up into class 3 and 4. Well, class 2 lasers probably have a lot of hospital equipment, like your x-ray machines. I'm not sure if x-ray machines are in class 2 or class 3. But when you get up into the class 3, yeah, I'm pretty sure that the x-ray machines are class 3 because they radiate. When you get up to class 3 lasers, that's where you have radiation, and you need radiation to be able to take images. So your class 3 lasers, I have to look at the power. It's not good for me to try to do that now, but when you get up to X amount of millijoules, you get into the class 3. So your lasers are probably, your x-ray machines are probably at the bottom of the class 3. But when you get up to 15, 20 millijoules, and you fire that laser, it has destructive power. It can damage and kill at that level. But when you can dial that laser up, I think it's 10,000 or 100,000 millijoules, and you can fire that laser from space, and you can destroy whatever it hits. So it says here, lasers can be used as weapons. They offer advantages over conventional projectile weapons, like bullets and missiles, including the ability to travel at the velocity of light, precise targeting, and controlled energy outputs. Laser weapons are still in the experimental stage. Now, they're putting this in here, but it's not at the experimental stage. They have them, okay? The propaganda comes in here that makes you want to think that they don't have them, but they have them. Okay, so you can have lasers from space, and you can have lasers that are ground station lasers. Okay, the most reliable ones that you can use are the ones from the ground where they're pointing up in space, because if you miss your target, the beam just goes in space. When you're firing down from space, you possibly can strike things other than your target. Okay, but they're your lasers. Okay, and with the technology being as it is, I'm pretty sure Russia has them. I'm pretty sure China has them. And here's the problem for Africa. You don't. You don't have nuclear weapons. You don't have laser weapons. But here's the good news. When you don't do business with the European countries and you start processing all of your materials, Ghana has just shown you in, 3 months, 4 months, they have, their economic structure has gained $3 to $4 billion in 12 weeks, 16 weeks. When all of the African countries say, that's it, I'm out, I don't want to play anymore, I'm not doing any business with you, there is no law that we have to do business with you. We don't have any agreement. Well, we have to sell you anything. I guarantee you that in a year, you will be able to draw the talent of your own African people instead of going to Germany, Great Britain, the United States to build their technology. You'll have money and the buildings and everything you need to build it right there in Africa. You will have money to start your own space program, to build your own communication satellite so that when Africans want to make a phone call, they don't have to be routed through Great Britain and France and let them make the money. Shut them down 100%, okay? But you have to come out of your slumber. You're going to have to do more than say, I'm woke. You know, like the parent goes into the child's room and say, wake up, and the child say, I'm woke, and they just lay there in the bed. Have to get up to go to school. You have to get up to go to work. Okay, so do more than wake up, get up. And what I'm telling you is the evidence shows. Let me do a little math. Hold on. Okay, looking at Ghana, if they made $3 or $4 million in 3 months, that's around 48. They made $3 billion, $4 billion in 3 to 4 months. That's $48 million a year, $billion a year. That's just Ghana. Burkina Faso is doing the same thing. Every nation in Africa has the ability to do the same thing. So if you combine that as a continental growth economically, you can have and build anything you want to. You can build your own ports. You can, instead of going to China and Russia, I mean, no disrespect to China and Russia because they're showing up. But you don't know what their end goal is either. You know what your end goal is? Independence. So if everybody makes a commitment to say, here's the way we're going to do business as a continent, and we're going to shut down these European countries, in a year, you will have enough money to not need to borrow a dime. In 5 years, you'll be able to tell the United States and Great Britain and France, we want to buy you. We want to buy everything you have and take over everything. That's the kind of money you will have. Africa has the youngest youth. The African countries have the youngest average age on earth. The average age in Africa is 18 to 20 years old. The majority of people in Africa are young. If we break this curse, keep them out of church, persuade them to stop going to school to be preachers and priests, that's the biggest problem you have right there. Most of the youth are choosing to go to seminary school and theology school to become indoctrinated on how to indoctrinate you and your children. We need the African youth to become engineers, civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, robotics engineers, in every field of engineering, aerospace engineers. That's what we need you going to school to become. Okay? So that when you come out of school, you don't have to leave home and make more money there than you do here. See, here's the other thing that you need to understand. When you shut them down and all of your money is staying in the country, in 5 years, you'll be able to be telling Americans, you'll make more money here working with us than you will in America. You'll be able to tell the white and black that are in America, France, Germany, Great Britain, Europe, come home. We have a job for you. We have land for you. We have a future for you. And nobody in this country gonna call you a nigger because you can pass your law. Call somebody a nigger over here, we're gonna cut your head off. We don't need we the biggest what's the word tool in oppression, enslavement, and colonization is to make you believe you need them. The first thing that they do is take away your independence, your physical independence, and your mental independence. You'll no longer have a free mind, and you'll no longer have a free body. And once they indoctrinate you to that, Willie Lynch says, once you break the natural nature of the nigger, the same way you break the natural nature of a horse, you can turn them loose and they won't run away. They'll stay right in the pasture. And when you call them, they'll come. And when you tell them to work, they'll work. But as long as you leave them in their natural state, they're going to want to be free. And right now, the majority of Africans really don't want to be free. Because if they did, they'd give up Jesus Christ, and they'd give up that church, and they'd give up Islam and Allah. They would send Allah back to Saudi Arabia, and they would send Jesus Christ, the Bible, and all of that stuff back to Europe. Okay? So you're not free. You have been indoctrinated now that they can turn you loose, and they don't have to worry about what you're going to do because you're carrying that cross. You're bending down, kissing an image of Jesus. You're down on your hands and knees. You need to never get on your hands and knees again a day in your life. And as soon as you wake up from that, you'll say, damn. Okay, but when you wake up, it's time to get up. Okay, and I'm showing you and I'm telling you how to stop it. There is absolutely no doubt that if we do these things, man, 5 or 10 years, well, it would take longer. It won't take 5 or 10 years for you to have the economic growth, but it'll take you at least 20 years to be able to restore the minds, because it takes 1 or 2 generations. The first generation of children in Africa, America, Jamaica, Haiti, South America, Barbados, all of the Caribbean islands, the first generation of children that are coming up after this, and they're not being taught this ridiculous stuff about you got a savior of a white man named Jesus Christ and go to church and give 10% of everything you own. Once the first generation of children are born that are not being indoctrinated to that, the curse is broken. It's the end. But until then, you're just going to be recycling the generational curse that has been put on you and our ancestors. So let's get busy and stop this. Okay? This is not our fault, but it is our responsibility. What I mean is, the situations that we're in weren't produced by us. They were produced by colonization, oppression, and enslavement. The biggest thing that they stole from us wasn't our land. It wasn't our sweat and labor. The biggest thing they stole from us is our minds. Let's finish this up, and I'm going to tie this all together, and we're going to get out of here. This video is about waking up is not enough. Getting up is required. Getting up means not just getting out of bed. Don't mix up what I'm trying to tell you. Getting up means awakening to the point that you get out of things that don't make sense. That we get the courage to tell people, no, I don't need to be in there. To be able to stand your ground against the believers that feel they know everything, but they don't, because if they knew it, they wouldn't believe it. Okay, and then when you show them biblical controversies, contradictions, They can't answer the basic question, okay? So the last time that I went to church on my behalf, meaning I felt I needed to be in church. I felt I needed to go into service and pray. I felt that I needed to go in church and praise Jesus, okay? It was 2020. It was during the time that the doctors had me on the 20 medications. It was during the time that I was losing 8, 10, 12 pounds a week because I wasn't able to eat in 6 weeks. I wasn't able to sleep in 6 weeks. The most I could do was drink juices and eat popsicles. I could not eat any solid food, only to find out it was the side effects from the medication that the doctors gave me. And not once did anybody call a doctor's name. Didn't one person say, well, Dag, maybe it's the medication that Ray is taking that has him feeling this way, has him looking this way, has him so despondent. I was incoherent, all right? So my family went to church. And when I left the service and I went out in the parking lot to go to my car, a brother walked up to me and said, Brother Witcher, and he was just smiling. Brother Witcher, you look like you're smoking crack. And I looked at this man and I'm like, you need to be very glad that I'm so weak that I can't kick your ass right here in this parking lot. And I got in my car and came home. And I told my wife, I said, I'm not going back to church, okay? If this is the kind of support that I'm going to get in church, I don't need to be in church. Okay, now I was still a believer, but I had already asked God to show me the things that I'm missing, that He wants me to see, show me what the teachers I'm teaching and the preachers I'm preaching. So instead of going to church, I studied. I put a lot of effort into the Bible, and that's when the Bible started falling apart. So I stopped going to church. For me, I went to church two more times in my hometown of South Boston, Virginia. I went to Ebenezer CME church I grew up in, because my mother was going to church. And I know how worried my mother was about me. So I wanted her to see that I was recovering. So after I realized that it was the 20th, after I looked up all of my medications in the physician's desk reference, the PDR, and I looked up all of my medications and I looked up the side effects from all of my medications, and the side effects all were nausea, vomiting, insomnia, depression, anxiety, everything that I was feeling. So I weaned myself off and I started getting better. I went from 156 pounds. I think in 2 weeks I was up to 176 pounds. So I went back to my hometown to surprise my mother in church. And when I got there, I went by my mother's house and I said, Mama, well, let's go to church. She said, no, I'm gonna just hang around with you here today. So I said, I have to go up to Ebenezer. So I went up, and you know how they have at the beginning of the service, they have the welcome. So I said, I at least want to go up and speak through the welcome, then I'll come home and spend the rest of the day with you. So at the welcome, I went in and I said, I'm probably the only person in the church that if I were to ask everybody that believe God is real to raise their hand, I would be the only one that didn't raise my hand. My hand would be in my pocket because I don't believe God is real. I know God is real, okay? And I explained to them, that I had gained 20 pounds. I was down to 156, even though I'm 176 pounds. None of you have ever seen me look like this. But every time I gain 20 pounds, I'm coming back home so that my mother can see that I'm recovering. I'm coming home so that you can bear witness that the Creator is good, okay? And I spoke for maybe 5 minutes, and when I went home, my mother started getting calls saying, your son spoke in church during the welcome and the preacher couldn't preach behind him. They shut the church down after Raymond finished. We love what he said, okay? Then when I go into these churches, I can't just drop a bomb on them. I have to feed them a little bit at a time, okay? I can't tell them that Jesus isn't real. I can't go in there and just destroy everything that they believe in, okay? But I have to give them confidence that the Creator is real. If you call the Creator Allah, if you call him Jesus, I'm not going to argue with you in the church, okay? So I think it was 2 weeks later, I was up to 196 pounds. So I went back home. I snuck home. And when I went in through the annex, the pastor was in her office. And I went in and I said, the last time I was here, I asked the pastor, could I come and get my testimony? And I called him 3 times. He said, sure, we would love to have you. And I called him 3 times, Pastor Stewart, and he never returned my call. She said, well, today is your lucky day. I said, what do you mean? She said, you'll give your testimony today. Cool. So I stood up and I think I spoke for 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, all biblical. And when I looked at my mom, you know how your mom can give you that look? And to honor her, I stopped because I was just getting to where I was going to tell them some things about Abraham. Basically, I was going to tell them, I want the same biblical relationship with God that Abraham had. God, you mean to tell me God stopped talking? No, God didn't stop talking. We got outside of God's frequency. So she shut me down. Okay, so I left. COVID hit. I wasn't able to go back. And a year later, my mother had COVID and passed. Okay. So I had no more desire to go back in a church after my mother passed, because the last 2 times I went to please my mother, to put her heart and mind at ease. So after my mother passed, and my childhood friend had attacked me and my wife about my daughter, which was all untrue. I had to remind her that I've been keeping her little dirty secret that she went out and slept with another man the night before she married her husband, and then put on a white dress and walked down the aisle up in Ebenezer Church. And it broke her heart, but it broke her husband's heart too. But my family's heart was broken. But what really hurt me was when I called Pastor Stewart and said, I need you to please call me. I'm having a rough time dealing with my mother's death. I called her 3 times and she never called me back, which means she disrespected my mother, who had been a faithful member of that church over 60 some years. So if I have to go back to church, it's to tell her how she's not doing God's work. My wife still goes to the same church that I was going to when the member came to me and told me, you look like you're smoking crack. Okay. My wife is a great cook, so they asked her to prepare certain things for the church, and she does it. I think she had made cupcakes or something like that for the church. Okay. And on this Sunday, she couldn't go deliver the cupcakes. And she said, Raymond, will you please take the cupcakes to the church for me? I can't go. I said, okay. So I go to the church with the cupcakes. The same guy that stood in the parking lot and told me I looked like I was smoking crack, he saw me, came out, smiling. Brother Richard, we're so glad to see you. We need you back. We want you back, brother. And I said, listen, I understand. Come on in, man. The people would love to see you. I said, listen, I'm not coming in. I'm just bringing these cupcakes for, after service. They're having a meal after service. And he said, oh, bro, your service is almost over, man. The people have been praying for you. They would love to see you, man. You should come on in. And, I stopped trying to debate with this guy, and I went in. I said, okay. So I went in the church. And this is how I know I cannot go back in the church. Man, they were preaching, and I'm listening to the sermon, the end of the sermon, and then they had a communion. So they're coming around with the blood of Jesus and the body of Christ. And they said, here, brother, which I said, no. I don't want that. And I'm listening to the service, and I'm listening to the pastor talking about how, everybody's going to be healed. Now, I'm not bashing them, because these are good people, okay? and they prayed for me fervently. Towards the end, they called out the sick and shut in. My name was on the first on the list. And I was like, wow, they're still praying for me. Okay, so I know that they have good hearts. I know they have good intentions, but the message that they're teaching is not applicable because Jesus never existed. So I hear the pastor talking about the healing and everybody's going to be healed in Jesus' name and da 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 da. And I'm looking around the church and I'm seeing people that I know have high blood pressure. I'm looking at people that I know are diabetic. I'm looking at people that are grossly overweight. And it just upset me because I know that all of these things that they're experiencing are correctable if you correct your diet. But they have so much confidence in what Paul said that you can eat whatever you want to eat as long as you bless it in the name of Jesus Christ. And they'll tell you that I'm not worried because I can eat anything I want to eat as long as I bless it in the name of Jesus Christ. And man, it upset me so bad that when the service actually ended, I went to one of the members, one of the church pastors, and I said, listen, bro. I said, man, I can't come back in here. I said, I don't want you guys. I'm not trying to insult you guys, but for me to come in here and see what I'm seeing, I'm looking at most of the people in here suffering from eating disorders, where people are literally eating themselves to death because they believe what Paul said. And I couldn't control myself. I had to vent. And I wasn't what you may call as pleasant. And I told him, I said, man, you had people in here drinking blood and all of these kind of things. I couldn't control myself. I said, you guys, you got to do better than this, man. And he's just looking at me. And then I realized, man, I'm in the church. Let me get out of here. I never should have came in here. And I left and I came home and I told my wife, I said, don't ever ask me to go back to the church and carry anything. Because I was coerced in the church. And I ended up telling Reverend Wiley, listen, man, you're not healing anybody in here. Everybody in here is sick. I'm looking at all of the congregation and everybody in here has an issue that they could cure just by changing their diet. But because Paul said you don't have to change anything, you can eat anything you want and bless it in the name of Jesus Christ. And I just told him, I said, I can't do it. Okay? I'm not going to do it. And I called the head pastor of the church and I asked him the same questions. I asked him, I asked his sister, and I asked her husband. I asked all of the ministers in the church I had belonged to help me with the same verses I've quoted. Mark chapter 9, verse 1. Matthew chapter 10, verses 5 through 8. Luke chapter 21, verses 30 and 31, where Jesus says, this generation shall not pass before I return. Where he says that some of you standing here won't taste death until I'm back. Where he told the disciples, tell everybody on the way to the house of Israel that the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven is near and it's nigh. It's at hand. And none of them answered me. So when I called the pastor, I said, listen, I can't come back to your church. Okay, and I'm just going to be honest with you because you guys, I've asked all of you same questions and not one of you have responded to me with an answer. I need a leader that's going to lead me, answer my questions, and not push me to the side and tell me I don't need to know and I need to believe. So I owe you at least enough to call you and respectfully tell you why you will not see me back in church. I haven't seen from them or heard from them again. So when I say you have to not just wake up, but get up, you have to get out of situations. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to go. When it comes to blacks in the military, remember something. We are the most patriotic people in this country. We have fought in every war. We've died. We're still called a nigger. Get out of the service. Get out of the military. Ashe. Have a great day.